season. So many things left up in the air here by GenG. They've been in the kitchen. They've been cooking some things up while we've been at Rift Rivals. Let's see how it goes as we get onto the Rift. GenG fans always so loud. And, oh, that looks like a rank 3 Volibear as well, as we can see.
And it's a Volibear Luchador skin as well, just like the Braum one that we saw so much of. There's the mask, a true Luchador.
I just like that it looks like rank 3 Volibear. Feel like we've... How do you get 9 Volibears? This is a 3 cost. It's incredible.
So the
Steel
build,
Legion Lux as well, so this is my favorite.
The build, in case you guys are wondering, is double rapid fire cannon into a Rage Blade. Wait.
Or you can go Claw as well, just to get some survivability as well.
That's
you can
true.
put a Phantom Dancer in there if you want to keep him healthy. A few options.
Just a bit of a TFT line. Of course, we're expecting a pretty tanky build. I guess Righteous Glory would be pretty good if you could get enough gold. I actually wouldn't hate the Volibear support with a Frostmancy bot laner, because you could imagine Volibear would spend the gold quite well, kind of like Taric likes items for the late game. Not to be. It's going to be Electrocute Lux. Okay, that's an interesting decision. It's about health bar trades here. The thing I always say with Electrocute, if it's not an assassin, is it's a lot about kind of the old kind of harassment procs that you can get with the Electrocute. Just keep your health bar ahead. However, it does kind of remind you of an old matchup, which would be Aurelia versus the mid lane Zoe that we saw so much. There is no Ignite from Chovy, but Lux is a squishy champion. There's no Aftershock. It's not as tanky as some of those bot lane Luxes you guys have been running into in solo queue. So the solo kill potential here with Teleport and not a defensive summoner from Fly is pretty damn high post 6.
Well, as you saw, just let you know how the early game has gone thus far. Griffin have faked a leash on the bottom side of the map. No early deep vision down for GenG either, so they're not entirely aware of where Tarzan has been pathing to. They do notice now that the chickens have been destroyed, but still not a lot of information gathered. So the Karthus is going to be pretty comfortable of clearing out this jungle.
CuVee was one of our most famous top lane Camille players through many metas. Even in the hyper-disappointing GenG Worlds campaign last year, they had a game against RNG in groups where CuVee almost 1v9 popped off on the Camille. So he's a very famous Camille player. The Fleet Footwork is a different choice. He's obviously in a really hard lane against Karma, among the highest presence and highest pressure of any top laner. It's melee versus range, so Sword is taking Karma, and yep, he's just found a different Dirty J-Spick in Karma top.
Yeah, disgusting. Well, at least Sword's going to be comfy. We've always liked how these two teams have matched up when it comes to the top lane. It feels like CuVee and Sword have a very similar playstyle of sort of weather the storm. They are, of course, CuVee, very notable Gangplank player. And Sword, of course, has just been picking a heck of a lot of Jace at the moment, but also the Aatrox and just weather the lane has been his style.
But it does make me wonder, because now we see the off-brand Jace, and it makes you wonder about Griffin, because it feels like the entire role of Sword in Summer has been pick the champion that can definitely have priority. Doesn't matter that it's not an initiator. Kind of like how in Spring it was pick the initiator, whatever the laning phase. Urgot meta, we're wonderful. Scion will deal with it. It does feel like Sword has been very one-note, and you just feel like when the first team actually finds the counter pick and tries to run away with it, and teams have tried, but the first time that successfully happens, how do Griffin reset that strategy?
Right now, GenG are thinking about bottom lane as being their option. Titan's Wrath is going to wear off as there's the flash. The flip comes in onto Viper as well, and they don't even need Peanut's help. The Winter's Wrath comes down, but Ren destroys the Kai'Sa, and GenG pull the trigger.
And the Sejuani was there to follow up. Wasn't even really needed in the play, but had the permafrost synergy. Cross-map play happening. CuVee has a smart ward. He's always been one of the best at playing the defensive side and playing with no backup. Speaking of backup.
Yep, Peanut's going to turn up. That's a great life binding as Chovy has to flash to get out of the way. And once again, Peanut on the map where he needs to be. And this hasn't been the Peanut we've seen in the first 5 minutes of other games this season.
And it hasn't been his tank jungle pick. He's a Zac player, true and true, but making the Sejuani work.
Yeah.
Happy to see him getting involved, because like you mentioned, he's kind of always been playing the Skarner role of really waiting for ultimate and then getting things done. Even his trusty Lee Sin hasn't been working live. So cool. His model is facing the opposite way, and then instant flash and flip over, there's very little graphic cues to dealing with the Q flash from the Volibear. When is the time to react? Too late. You're already on the enemy side of the rift, so nicely played there. And when Fate's Call comes in, you can do that again.
Yep, you can do that whenever you want. He's going to be able to safely ward around this map as well. It's going to be pretty comfy here. And they also have Lux in the mid to late game as far as checking brushes like you talk about all the time. May not necessarily have things like the Aftershock to keep Fly safe, but he'll have a whole lot more items.
And it's, like you mentioned, I think you're going through a hiccup phase there.
I am. Sorry, I got a bit of a hiccup problem.
That's okay. Volibear and Sejuani, both face checkers. Fate's Call means the Volibear has a very long leash to face check. Like you say, you can do it with the Lux. Now, you don't put points in the W for Kalista in the meta right now until kind of level 10 or 12.
Yep.
But there's also the ability to throw out some of those Sentinels into mid-late game. There is a lot of ability to play this game out to a formula, which is a very GenG way to play. So whether they're ahead in vision or not, this is the sort of comp that can come from behind and also close out a game. So a lot to like here, even if we're mostly kind of apple of our eye about the Volibear support.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited to see whether GenG's composition that seems to have been put together with a lot of like ragtag picks, but you understand exactly what it's trying to achieve, versus Griffin with, well, we've taken the highest power level on this patch.
But there is also ways that Griffin win. For example, there's the chance that Lux can't go mid, top, or bot, depending on if Aurelia gets ahead. Well, that's a hard lane for her to go to.
Yeah.
Karma's a lane that can chase her down, get the stun in, and then an ally can come and pick up the kill. So rotating around Lux, just because you see the teleport, doesn't mean that Lux is always going to have a role when outer turrets start going down. So if the game does start well for Griffin, it might have to be about vision plays from GenG, rather than that being the cherry on top of a delicious cake.
Well, we've got delicious GenG foods. See whether they're going to be able to give us a victory here today as well with their unorthodox composition.
So it's playing around with minion waves, as you can see. Doesn't want this one to fast push into the turret and reset.
Should be able to, though, however, as Light Binding's going to go wide. Chovy pretty tough to lock down, but does land the Lucent Singularity at least. That's a lot of pickaxes here for Viper.
And it is a Sheen build coming through from the Karma. That means no early utility items like the Athenes and the Hardened Sensor against an AD laner. That makes some sense. Instead, the Iceborne Gauntlet to go for that more Chakarez tank top build. And yes, the double pickaxe build. This is probably going to be the fast 100 AD, right? The actual super fast way to get it. Wait and see what all the decisions are from Viper. He does play around with a lot of different looks.
So just straight up missing his Q there in that lane is
It might have been intentional to not push the wave, but also potentially to get procs in there. I doubt that was just a straight up miss.
Yeah, but I don't know what you gain by just throwing out a Q and hitting nothing.
I mean, I'm with you there, but I've been called out before on things like, oh, you can stack the Ezreal Q by just queuing backwards during the laning phase and stuff. There's no tier here. Whoa! Here we go. SK Telecom T1 Bielzahan. Now, that's a name that LEC fans would know. It was Horo who did play in the LEC at a point as Lehends.
Yeah, Life is going to go aggressive here as Lehends does have the Aftershock. He's going to be okay. Life uses half of his health bar and his ultimate. But of course, when you're a Volibear, your ultimate isn't super important. Tarzan in position, Peanut also. Over here at the right spot, Hex Flash, there it is. Life gonna get the flip back as Lehends does use the dredge line, gets out of there. Tarzan reveals himself. They get the flash, and that's what they wanted.
Yep, that's enough for the beginning of this play. Tarzan's on a very low presence jungler, right? It's the Karthus. He's very much around for counter ganking. And then mid to late game plays, usually around level 11 is when the grouping starts there. GenG continue to be proactive. Fun to see. Coming back to Bielzahan again, played on Unicorns of Love for a time over in the LEC. If you're wondering about that SK Telecom T1 side, that was the squad that Montindoa dubbed Terminator, the original first team squad compared to SK Telecom T1-2 that went on to become the world champions in 2013. So that roster had Reaper in the top lane at the time, current Cloud9 coach, and a lot of other players that aren't around. Raven and Starlast, the bot lane, were ones that I enjoyed casting in 2012. I'm old, it turns out, as CuVee.
Gonna get a flash. Peanut just wanders past, and that's a successful gank without actually having to do too much. Nice work, GenG.
I have to think back as who the mid laner was of that squad. I actually don't remember. I remember every other role, but not the mid laner of the original SKT squad. It was mightily before they became SKT. They changed it. It might have been Suno who went on to play for with Loco Doco and Quantic over in NA.
Oh, good lord.
Yeah.
Man. I mean, this is way before my LCK
No,
time.
I know.
So I don't have anything for you. I'm sorry.
And you can vouch. This is completely from the top of my head. I don't have Leaguepedia open in front of me.
Yep, I can confirm that, guys. He is not looking anything up. And just absolutely useless when it comes to helping you out there. Can potentially, give you some LPL knowledge.
Exactly.
But,
you remember some
it.
2012 LPL. You've got that going for you.
Yeah. I mean, 2012 though, man. I mean, I only just started. That was when I was watching you. My LPL knowledge comes from you and Pastry Time on Star Ladder,
Been around. Been around. Not Star Ladder, but Stars War League.
Stars War League.
Star Ladder's the one that does the Hearthstone.
Yeah, that's the other one. Yeah.
And PUBG, I think, now.
That's what our old mate Clinton was just over in Russia doing. Just
fun around.
Memory not so good.
Well, we got to have fun about history because, especially CuVee's having no fun. It's Karma top, so
yeah, is at least farming relatively well.
Yeah, you take a -20 at 15 minutes is kind of, well, this sucked, but I did my best,
Yeah.
Anything worse than that or deaths, that's when things get really bad. However, speaking of deaths, we're having some breakup in the laning phase. Tarzan, first to the Rift Herald and first rotation, you'll notice, coming from Viper and Lehends.
Well, Life is going to get here as well. Fly has a little bit of priority here in this mid lane as Ruler's going to move over. Peanut clearing out vision, but you can see this is going to be a 50-50 and they decide not to go for it. Griffin back away, Shelly resets, and now it's GenG's turn to move into this pit. Peanut just going to Arctic Assault, gets himself out of there, and no one is going to be taking the Rift Herald at this particular moment.
It's pretty scary to contest vision against the squad of GenG.
Yeah, we were talking about it, right?
Only Lehends can walk up, but he doesn't have a Fate's Call if the warded brush is in fact filled with GenG members. Here comes Fly. They're going to contest this once again, so they push out mid. Aurelia can't join. The do-si-do continues and buys time for both teams.
Yep, you can see exactly why GenG is so comfortable doing this. Fly throws out the Lucid Singularity. Ruler is going to start getting some auto attacks in. No teleport on the bottom side for both of these 80 carries, and that minion wave is going to go begging for GenG. They really, really want to take Shelly off the map, and they do have the better smite in the Rend and smite combo.
And also the Eye, right? There's a lot of potential burst rounds here, depending on if you can protect the Eye. Eye pops 3,500 health.
Yeah, and Ruler, he's going to have the Rend. They do manage to lock it down. The fight's going to break out, though. The Karma, the first to fall, as Life just able to pick his target so beautifully on this Volibear.
We don't flip people off on this broadcast. That's not PG-13, but Volibear does. Oh, boy, he just gets in there. What are you going to do?
Yeah, nothing. And look at the swagger as well as he's walking up. He's slapping his hands together. He's ready to take you down.
He's a Thunder Bear.
Yeah,
that's pretty swag.
Damn right it is. Shout outs to the new Golden Compass TV show that's going to be coming out. We'll be able to see a Thunder Bear ourselves when that one does happen. Very excited.
Just you seeing it, and again, it's what I mentioned during the laning phase. If you Q flash, there's really few seconds to deal with an ability that CCs you and puts you behind them, and that has almost no graphical Q and is targeted. So yeah, gotta say, with the Fate's Call especially, looks really good.
And the fact that you can deny those dashes afterwards as well with a W, that's going to be a great binding landing, and that's what this GenG composition can do. It's non-committal CC that they can throw out. If they catch anything, then the bear just dives in and pulls you out whatever fish you want.
And you know, there are some puns that come out about things being unbearable at some point this game.
Well, I'm bearing it right now. I'm feeling pretty good about what life is throwing at us, Papa Smithy.
I mean, right now you have to say, we're seeing the bare necessities of a victory for GenG.
Oh, God.
We open the door.
It's Life playing a bear. Like, it's just, there's too many really, really bad opportunities here.
Only 2 turret blades for the Karma in the win lane, win game scenario on the top side. And remember, when we've seen the lane Karma work recently this week, it's a lot of mid-game comes around, you run around with big shields and turret dive people. But do you turret dive Sejuani in waiting, Fate's Call Volibear in waiting, Camille for a TP turn? I think Griffin especially have to be very careful about where they target, because the potential for turnaround here, especially out of vision, is very high.
Well, Life Binding just fishing to see whether Chovy is going to take some extra damage here. Peanut ready and waiting. Just going to wander across this lane, clears out the vision where he can. Fly moves on down. GenG still, they have control around this map, but they don't have control as far as the money is concerned. It's still very even here, and that's largely to do with this Karma on the top side of the map.
The Karma's kind of babying him through with Casual 1,000 gold in large because Klepto.
Yep, sharing some CC here between Chovy and Fly, but we mentioned the fact that this lane can be a bit dicey for the Lux, and so far Chovy does have an advantage when it comes to the farm.
Less dicey than you might imagine because there's control wards on both sides, and that means that Lux is feeling a lot more comfortable to walk up.
Speaking of walking up, Lehends is going to do so. Winter's Wrath comes down. Fair bit of damage there onto Lehends, but they're not going to go for any dives just yet.
Gotta say, you know, when we talked to Arnold, the COO of GenG, and he was talking about, you know, potential mystery gifts for a victory today, it was looking very fanciful, right?
It was.
It's Griffin, 7-1. Right now, already guaranteed whatever the result to be the top team at the end of the first round robin. And yet, the team have come in with new ideas. These ones seem to fit them a lot more than the Karma Olaf that they just didn't seem to understand how to play out. They're doing cool new things that, again, Jinair is probably like, no, this was supposed to be us. But the Kellen idea is becoming the LCK idea. Ruler gets the first turret in the bot lane. It isn't a huge gold lead, but it's a nice start for GenG.
Decent chunk there coming out from Fly as well, just trying to keep Chovy honest here in this lane as he seems to be able to pick whichever farm he wants to be taking. Lehends comes on over, and the Corrupting Potion is going to be here for Chovy, so it will be pretty comfy. Tarzan heading back home, not a hell of a lot of stacks here on his Dark Harvest. It's been a rough season so far. Haven't seen a Requiem just yet.
Happy hunting season potentially in the future, and obviously one fight can quickly change that. But yes, not what you want. Have we seen a Requiem? We haven't, right?
Nope, not yet.
And that was, of course, the thing with Peanuts, Karthus, where the first Requiem was, I believe, 34 minutes.
I'm not even sure whether we used
one. He did.
He did? Okay.
It was not very mean.
No.
Walking down, they can even siege here with the Lux shields. With ability power, those shields are going to be nice. They're going to be pretty big on this side. We usually see Lux support if you go the full Athene's build, maybe at 250 AP. We should be seeing significantly higher numbers from this Lux.
Yeah, we'll see what Fly is going to be picking up next. It's just the Lehends to come in as item number 1, but he could go for any sort of Enchanter options. We are going to most likely see a similar build coming out of Sword eventually when it comes to things like Ardent Sensor
I'm actually
and
kind of
stuff like that.
And as you mentioned that, I'm kind of thinking about that and being like, do I like full AP one-shot or don't one-shot Lux, which is the criticism of Lux, while we haven't seen her in mid very frequently, is hit all your abilities and someone dies. One of them misses, they don't die, and your cooldowns are so long that you aren't able to contribute. Or do I like kind of a build that would have fit mid lane Karma many times of Ludens into Ardent Sensor? Because
or a Lulu build, something like that.
Volibear likes attack speed, you know? If you're thinking about things that aren't obvious,
and
like
they've got
Kalista.
a big front line if the Volibear does get himself the Aftershock, and they can run in with Peanut as well on the Sejuani. Low range is Ruler, but he will be able to jump around with these big tanks in the front line.
Color me open to both possibilities. Let's see what Fly prefers to do.
That's the cool thing about this comp, though, is we don't necessarily know, but we can see a lot of these different options working. As Infernal Drake has spawned on the map, and GenG have full priority of this area.
And as we noted, they're a scary team to try to contest. Temporary vision from the blue trinket, TP coming in. This could be that first fight.
Yep, Griffin definitely don't want to give this one away for free. A lot of sticks here in this Dragon. Teleport comes down from CuVee immediately. Flawless Duet comes in. It is going to be taken. The Ren's good. Great final spark as well as once again. Life dives forward and somebody dies. This time it's going to be the Kaiser as Ruler. He's going to save the Volibear. Sword is going to go golden though, and life eventually does fall. Tarzan in the back line is landing a lot of Skittles, but Ruler is going to go golden. I think that is going to be his life over, as the first Requiem was a good one, but GenG still making this one work. It is a bloodbath. Only Sword survives from Griffin's side, and CuVee is the man left standing with Fly beside him.
And that is the ace for GenG. They're able to win it and get the Infernal Drake. They're being decisive as their comp suggested. On paper, they're playing to their win conditions, and Griffin, understandably, are always taking that extra moment to think about it. They seem confused by some of the things going on here. And the Volibear gets there, flips over the first, and Viper being the first person to die means that a team fight victory is almost unfathomable on the side of Griffin.
Yep, and Fly with his first 2 life bindings stunned 3 people, so that is exactly what you want out of your luck. Still a lot of damage done here from Tarzan, but Ruler got so much damage done at the beginning of this fight that him falling down there meant that GenG was still able to win this one. Fantastic stuff here from this squad. Tower falls down in the mid lane. That was CuVee that was able to pick that one up. And his Trinity Force is done. We're having a look at the damage. Oh, huge number out of Tarzan, but that's a big donut for Viper.
950 damage from Volibear. That's pretty damn good, right? We're all a bit excited about Volibear in the LCK. The first time since 2013. That was a jungle Volibear.
Yep.
Because Bielzahan, then Horror was their jungler. We roll through here, and after that fight, we're freshly shopped with some tasty little options here. Hurricane done for the Kalista, working on double lifesteal. Pretty standard build on that side. More cooldown reduction, perhaps the Herald of Azonias for kind of safety against specifically the dive from Chovy, but also the Requiem on the side of the Lux. That probably suggests that we won't be seeing the utility items and we'll be a bit more AP focused. If you do go full AP Lux, that is a target for Chovy to consider against the backline. So TP flank, not from a top lane like we're used to, but from the Aurelia, might be really important for Griffin.
See whether they can get there. At the moment, it is going to be Fly building towards the Zhonya's to keep himself comfy in his mid lane position and wanting to utilize that stasis to get off the second round of spells in a team fight. We saw in that first one was very, very valuable here for this squad. Fantastic to see Fly come back and actually be a linchpin for this team when honestly it was a bit of a passenger when he was playing in the spring season.
He's doing it his way as well with an
off-meta
champion in Korea like Lux. We don't have our resident Froggins here, or Bjergsen's for that matter. Ruler, contesting vision. It's all about what GenG want. They want top side, they're setting up, and Griffin are doing their best to slow down the GenG onslaught. GenG have so much engage, remember.
Well, Fly's going to land it sword immediately, has to go into that. Zonya's Peanut, though, has to flash away. The Voidseeker's not going to find the Piggy, and that means he is going to survive. Ruler able to dance around this one, but Wall of Pain is going to tag him for the slow. But GenG, they are able to kite them out and get out of here unless Chovy can get on top of Fly, but Fly Finding will be back available, and GenG are able to just saunter away.
Only little victory there is a Dark Harvest proc onto the Karthus. They back away. Griffin gets vision control, but it's hard for Griffin to actually get wins. They can push in around Fly, but with his range, he can try to slow down this push. Doesn't want to trifle with them too much.
Yeah, has to be a little bit careful, but Life was making his way up.
Didn't have the ultimate back off cooldown in order to ult the waves. There is a little objective there. Around Aurelia, good things can happen because Aurelia shadows Lux in a very good way in the side lane. We did hypothesize that rotating around the Lux attempting to side lane was a potential win condition for Griffin, and also finding the out team fight that a Karma can. But no guarantees around that, and the setup before the fight should be easy advantage. GenG, with our multiple times mentioned, strong front line on the red side.
Crazy thing is, CuVee picking up so many of those kills in that last fight, as well as being able to get that turret. He's actually ahead in gold. Over the Kleptomancy, which is nutty. Also has that 20 CS advantage, as you just illustrated to me there. Off-camera Puffer Smithing.
And the top lane build does cut the cheap buffing items, so it is still CDR and still will be shields, but Zhonya's and the Iceborne Gauntlet is a different proposition to the Ardent Sensor and how much that would provide for someone like Viper. Speaking of Viper, he has gone for the build that we saw the LPL preferring, that's coming back into relevance in Korea. Started in Korean solo queue, but Stormrazor was the chief choice for the two of all. There's burst damage here, but with no Ardent Sensor and a slow Nashal's Tooth, there is a bit of a damage fall off before all the items come in.
And also, it means that it's going to be the AP Kai'Sa coming in with the Nashal's Tooth, meaning that 3 sources of magic damage on Griffin's side, and a lot of magic resist able to be built pretty comfortably by the GenG frontline in Life and Peanut. See, Peanut, he's gone for the Gargoyle Stoneplate as item number 1, but can easily move into magic resist from here to augment that. Could be the Warmogs and then Adaptive Helm or something like that coming in from the set.
2,400 gold lead in bot. 700, I should say. 700 gold over Klepto Karma is actually pretty impressive. Sword has been trying to counter-rotate and has given up some minion waves, but credit to CuVee for hanging in the bad portion, but also kind of accelerating away when the map state started to benefit GenG, when they were taking over objectives and people were coming to them. CuVee got minion waves, and speaking of getting things, he's got Lifesteal, he's got his Q, transforming Trinity Force, he's got an Ocean Drake in his pocket.
Yep, very easy. Saw the observers putting that little docket up there a bit before it went down because that wasn't going to be contested unless Viper was able to throw out a Void Seeker, but that would have been blind. You can see bottom side of the map. It's basically all owned by GenG when it comes to the vision. Even that deep ward on the red buff is going to spot that red timer. Speaking of red buff, GenG taking their own on their side of the map as Sword's able to clear out that control ward. GenG know, though, that Griffin are on the bottom side, allowing GenG to move into the river on the top side of the map and get control of this Baron area if they want to.
They're in a really, really strong portion of the game if they continue to play smartly on the side of GenG. Right now, they've been out-rotated, TP defensively.
Yep, ultimate flies forward, though, here is Lehends able to buffer the dredge line and get out of there. Pulls himself out of prison by the looks of things. As CuVee on the bottom side, unanswerable.
And they wanted that TP, and like you mentioned, there's not really a great point for Karma to go there early. It's better for her to fish for a team fight and then go back and wave clear. And in moments like that, they lose inner turrets, and just coming back to the point I was about to make, think about how forgiving GenG's teamfight comp is. Melee range Volibear goes in with no Kalista, just blows up, right? Support Volibear with the Kalista, Fate's Call. They have double lifesteal, overshield Kalista with Lux shields coming through, and they have very reliable engage from both Sejuani and the Volibear. So whenever they get there first, which has been the story, GenG have set up vision and held vision and chosen the right fights. Their fights are already pretty forgiving, so there's a lot to like. And it's almost like Griffin needs to use the mobility and shields from the Karma to fish for something, because if it just goes boiler point, doesn't GenG just walk away with this game?
It looks like they're in a great position to just win it. They've got all 3 of the neutral objectives that have been taken on the map. Sorry, 4, as Shelly did go over to them also. Thrown down in that mid lane, got them a couple of plates there also. Large reason why a 4,000 gold lead has been accrued from this squad, but it's where the money is, and it's how they're utilizing it that's really been impressing me on the side of GenG. Look at that lead for the Camille. It is gigantic. 27 minutes, 290 CS is fantastic work here from CuVee, but he has put Sword in a deeper and deeper hole.
But unlike, say, Rumble versus Camille or Rumble versus Jarvan, where as a Rumble player I know there's that point where you decide, oh, can't really enter this lane, he got Black Cleaver and a Titanic Hydra.
Yeah.
Do remember that Sword has his W to both heal and stun the enemy. He has Zonias and he has on-command wave clear. Karma still has a role in the 1v1, but doesn't want to be caught way down a lane, because then there's enough chase potential with the Hextech ultimatum and the now short cooldown on the hook shot to kill him. So ultra safely, at least you can still wave clear as the Karma, but you're kind of correct in that it is a big predicament to have a Camille this large at 28 minutes.
Yeah, can be scary. Also does a heck of a lot of damage to turrets. Trinity Force, of course, is going to do that. Does have now his Sterix Gauge for a little bit more of that ability to buff up the damage on the Trinity Force, but keep himself alive as well with that big shield.
They want to get Camille's TP. That's the big objective here for Griffin.
Probably, I feel like GenG do have a lot of poke options to get them off this Baron buff, but you can see half the health bar now has been taken, and haven't taken the bait just yet. That light binding going to go wide as Glacial Prison is going to come in. The TP finally is going to be utilized now, but it's a good knock-up onto Live. The final spark is great as well as Chovy is going to get knocked up. The bear delivery system into the backline is there, and CuVee comes forward, takes down the Karma, and the straggling Nautilus is going to suffer the same fate. Now with 2 dead, GenG moved to the Baron, and the way they played that out in a macro sense was just divine.
Exactly. They're so patient. They wait till the Baron is 4,000, and then they choose to TP. And you might say, Papa, why? Why is that relevant? Because guess what? If you get the Baron down to 4,000, you can actually just leash it as the enemy and go onto it and kill it. So Griffin can't fully disengage because the Baron got this low. There's always that duality between 7,000 health Baron and 4,000 health Baron, and that means when the TP comes in, there will always be a fight, because Griffin can't just leave the pit and leave a free Baron for GenG.
Well, that was what they did in the end, and now GenG with 3 minutes of this Baron buff. They've got wards everywhere on the top side of the map, as you can see, but they are now able to get into that split push mode, and CuVee is definitely going to be able to shine, and Shiny has so far this game. CuVee, there have been a lot of question marks. You know, they won that series where he went Tahm Kench top lane and then brought out his Gnar again, and that actually asked more questions that it answered in a lot of ways when it comes to the champion pool, but that last fight was about Fly. That final spark was named real well at that point in time, and the total damage dealt is just gigantic here from this Pokey Lux.
And if you get that first kill, there is that cooldown reduction on the ability, as we know. And not so relevant from support, very relevant.
Oh yeah.
From the carry role. CuVee's been the star of this game, even though we love the bear. It's not quite James Bond, who died once.
There's so many cool things though, right? It's CuVee coming back to his Camille and being a hero. There's Fly playing the mid lane Lux for the first time in the LCK. And there's life on his Volibear. It feels like there are so many things that we want to talk about. We would have preferred a few less awesome things to have happened this game.
And for me in particular, I actually find it less interesting to talk about the individuals, and I like to talk about GenG, you know, a squad with lots of players who've been around the LCK for a long time, who've tried things, but they're usually defined by, no, get back in your box, you're scaling till 40 minutes and team fighting around rule. That's all you can do. Spring season, that didn't get them a lot of wins, but if they did win, it was a ruler pop-off 100% of the time. In this game, we're seeing a new plan that they're actually executing really well, Atlas, and that's the heartening thing, is that GenG as a squad, even from Peanut's better level of aggression in the early game, everything's fallen into place for the entirety of GenG.
Yeah, not only is their early game being good, but their transition in a macro sense moving into the mid to late game has also been fantastic, and that's sort of harkening back to the GenG of old. Lehends looked for something, didn't find it, Sword and Chovy down here, unable to contend with CuVee, and that means that GenG get a man advantage in the mid lane and break the base. Continuing to look fantastic here on the map. They'll take the first inhibitor and then look to move down towards the bottom side.
Flashes up on the bear as well, Atlas, so they have to remember that while the bear walks around. Little buffs on his W. Arnsabin, the Thunder Hands ready to go. He's zoning.
Yep, he's rolling. He's rumbling towards Lehends, who's going to go down solo. Chovy trying to be a hero in the backline, but he's going to get destroyed. The Thunderclaws rip him apart. Peanut is gigantic. And that is a requiem, but it is for a dream this time for Griffin. They are going to suffer at the hands of GenG, their first game loss in the LCK for an extremely long time.
And the biggest compliment we can give GenG is it's not about the woes of Griffin, it's about the great moves of GenG. Really cool draft that comes through with new stuff. They're smiling, and maybe the fans are getting some mystery gifts, because right now, GenG are looking like they could beat Griffin on this match.